So 2 days ago, we saw the blockbuster trade between Minnesota and Utah Jazz, where Utah sent Rudy Gobert over to Minnesota, and Minnesota sent over 5 rotational players and 4 future first-round picks, and also their first-round pick that they drafted just a couple weeks ago. And my initial reaction to this trade was, what in the hell is Minnesota doing? They overpaid for Rudy Gobert. This is a terrible trade. They just ruined their franchise for the next 5 years. That was my initial reaction. And of course, I was like, the Jazz got away with robbery on this one. And now it's been a couple days. I am second guessing my first opinion. And I think this wasn't a terrible trade for Minnesota, and it can work out in their favor pretty well. So before I talk about the Minnesota side, which this video is pretty much predicated around, I want to talk about the Utah Jazz side just a little bit. So they obviously got a huge haul for Rudy Gobert, more than anyone expected them to get. They got 4 first-round picks. They got the first-round pick from this year from Minnesota, and they got Patrick Beverly, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, and 2 other rotational guys, I believe. Absolute haul. This is a great move for them, and I like their idea of retooling around Donovan Mitchell, because Donovan Mitchell's only like 24, 25. Like, he's still a young player, not quite in his prime yet. So I think it'd be kind of stupid to trade him away, especially in the small market of Utah. But now they have all these assets, these future assets, they can then trade to get other players around Donovan Mitchell to make that team work a little better. And I don't blame them at all for trading Rudy Gobert. It hasn't worked for them for years. They've been good enough to make the playoffs, and that's about it. And for the past couple years, ever since the bubble, there's been a pretty obvious tension between Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. So great win for Utah. I give them an A++ for this trade. Absolutely phenomenal move by them, and now they have future assets to then move forward with their team. Getting over to the Minnesota side, like I said, my initial reaction was, what the hell are they doing? They just finessed themselves. This is a terrible move. Why would they screw up what they have going on right now? And now that I'm thinking about it, I think this was a good move for them. So let's get into it here. First, it's Minnesota. If you guys can name a big free agent that's ever decided to go to Minnesota, let me know. I mean, I've only been watching basketball for about 10 years now, and I've yet to see it, and I don't think I will see it. So when an all-star caliber player like Gobert is available, you're going to have to overpay. You're going to have to trade for him. And that's just how it is being in a small market, especially in cold-ass Minnesota. I mean, no one really wants to go there unless they're getting overpaid. So that's the first one. A team like Minnesota, where they are, what the team is, they have to trade for players or draft them through the draft, which is, I'll bring them to the next point, is Minnesota hasn't really had the best player development when it comes to rookies. I mean, they've been bad for a long time, and they've only landed a few draft picks that have literally fallen into their lap. Karl-Anthony Towns, when they drafted him, it was him or Okafor, and when it got closer to the draft, it was realizing that Karl-Anthony Towns was the best prospect in that draft, and they had the #1 pick, so they took him. Andrew Wiggins was the best, player in their draft, so they took him. It didn't really work out for them. They, again, tried to develop him differently into the player he wasn't really supposed to be. Now that they traded him away, he's an all-star caliber player, and he's playing phenomenally. Anthony Edwards pretty much fell in their lap. He was the consensus #1 pick when it came time to draft night. They could have drafted LaMelo there, but really, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up in my opinion. It depends what you want in a basketball player. Edwards is more the offensive scorer than LaMelo is, but LaMelo's a better playmaker. So it's like, it's really pick your choice at that point. So trading away all these draft picks, I mean, they haven't really been great at finding talent and drafting them. Now they got a new general manager who used to work for the Denver Nuggets, who drafted, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, drafted Jamal Murray. I think he drafted Michael Porter Jr., Jokic. So he does have a good eye for talent. But historically, they have Minnesota as a franchise hasn't drafted that well. So these picks are not, to me, are not that valuable to them than it would be to another team, if that makes any sense at all. Like, they don't use their picks that greatly. So I think moving on for them isn't the worst decision. Now, all the way up to 2029 is kind of scary because you have no idea what the league's going to look like by then. So now we got over the assets that they gave away. So let's talk about the on-court play. So for a while, the NBA has been zigging, and they decided to zag like the Cavs did, running the 2 big lineup. But this double big lineup can work, in my opinion, because Cat has the entire offensive package. He can pretty much play the wing spot at 7 foot. He can shoot, he can post up, he can pull up the mid-range, he can run the break when he gets a rebound. Like, he has the complete offensive package, and he lacks on the defensive side. And now that you have Gobert, whose only job is going to be to grab rebounds, block shots, and catch lobs from D'Angelo Russell, who's a better playmaker than Donovan Mitchell is. So having D'Lo will make Gobert a more of an offensive threat because he'll actually pass the ball, unlike Donovan Mitchell would. And if you think about the spacing, so what really killed the Jazz in the playoffs versus the Mavericks is that they just went small, had one stretch five out there, and so that had to stretch Gobert out to the perimeter and play perimeter defense, which is not his expertise because he's like 7'2" and he like his feet can't move that fast. You can't blame him for not being able to guard guys on the perimeter, and that's not his job. His job is to block shots, and play good defense around the rim. Now, if you have someone like Cat who's who's 7 feet, and you have Gobert who's 7 feet, you're going to need to play a kind of a brute physical center who's going to be able to D up on those two guys. So that gives Gobert someone to guard, on defense, so he doesn't have to go to the perimeter as much, because you're not going to be able to go small versus Minnesota Timberwolves because of the size they have, and Cat and Towns. And also Edwards is a slashing, rim running, athletic wing who also punish you in the paint if you don't have any size in there too. So I think Gobert can hide on offense more with the weapons around him. And then also on defense, he's going to have an assignment because there's going to be bigger guys on the court to be able to guard the players that Minnesota has. So he'll always have an assignment that he can, guard better, if that makes any sense. And lastly, people are talking about Gobert's contract, and I don't think a guy that can't create his own shot offensively whatsoever should be paid over $30 million in this league, just period. I think it's kind of ridiculous, the contract that he does have. So his contract isn't necessarily a bad contract, but it's close because he's getting paid a lot more than he actually gives you on the court. But again, a team like Minnesota, they're not going to be able to use that cap space that often because teams don't really go, or players don't really go play for small market teams like that. So they have to trade and draft, to build their team. So using that cap space on someone Gobert, who is a multi-time All-Star and who's going to make you a top 5 defense in the league, and it's going to, catch lobs if he's given the opportunity to, like, he's going to affect your basketball team in a positive way. And now with the 2 big lineup, he can really play better defense because there's going to be someone to guard all the time. So I think that contract looks a little better in Minnesota than it did in Utah, if that makes any sense. Again, I'm kind of just rambling on this trade because I don't have my laptop broke, so my equipment is very bare bones right now. So I'm kind of just first taking this. But that's pretty much my thoughts on the Rudy Gobert trade. If you guys agree with me, comment down below. If you disagree, comment down below. If you liked it, go ahead and like the video. And if you want to keep watching, hit that subscribe button on the road to 1K. Thank you guys for tuning in.